Jefferson. We thank God for you to all the officers. Oh, we changed them. Hey. Tell me your name. Johnson. Jefferson. Johnson to the J's. We praise God for both of you and all that you have done for all of the officers and members of Mount Olives and friends and family who have gathered. Good evening to each of you. It is good to be in the house of the Lord. I know that this is the final night of revival. It is raining and some of y'all already look like you're tired. So we're not going to belabor the point, but we praise God for whom all blessings flow. This is, from what I can tell, has been a blessed revival. Every revival is a wonderful opportunity to be blessed by the Lord, and I thank God for the other messengers who have come before me, and I praise God for the privilege of Pastor Ellis allowing me to be here on your final night. We are, I wouldn't say partners in crime, but we have got money out of banks. Matter of fact, we've gotten to the tune of $250 million out of banks. And we're continuing the work that God has called us to. I tell everyone that a true pastor, I'm not saying that others aren't, but I believe that churches ought to be priestly and prophetic. Priestly, that you are trying to introduce them to the Son of God, to know Jesus for themselves, to be saved. But the whole point of being saved is to let your light shine and to be the prophet that speaks, as Dr. Martin Luther King says, be the conscience to the king, that when injustice is done, that somebody needs to speak up. Somebody needs to say things need to change, and I don't only say it, but work and come with solutions for the change. And I'm so glad for Pastor Ellis that we are standing together with so many others in Northern Virginia through Voice to do the work that needs to be done. And on October 21st, I know he's been telling you, we got criminal justice reform that we're working on, school reform that we're working on, trying to keep families together so many different ways. Yes. Your theme, excuse me, tonight, as it's been for this revival, is trusting God's promises. Yes. And walking in victory. And that's something that we should always strive to do. Amen. So I want you to open your Bibles, if you will, to an Old Testament and New Testament text that helps us to do that, that says amen to the Proverbs text that you have, to trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not to your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He shall direct your path. And that's your theme. So I want you to go to the Old Testament, to the Jewish Bible, or the First Testament, I would like to say that. And we're going to look at 1 Samuel chapter 17. Familiar story to some, may not be to others. 1 Samuel chapter 17. And we're going to read verses 28 through 45. We're going to read it from the New International Version. And find that spot, and then once you have 1 Samuel chapter 17, begin at verse 28, hold that spot and then go to the New Testament, to the book of Romans, Paul's letter to the church at Rome. Go to Romans chapter 8. We're going to lift up just a couple verses there, 35 through 39. Romans chapter 8, verses 35 through 39 will be our New Testament reading. But let's begin in the Jewish Bible. 1 Samuel chapter 17, verses 28 through 45, whatever is your custom to stand at the reading of God's Word, to look at it hard copy or electronic, feel free to do that at this time. 1 Samuel chapter 17, verses 28 through 45, read this way from the New International Version translation of the Word of God. When Eliab, David's oldest brother, heard him speaking with the men, he burned with anger at him and asked, "Why have you come down from here? Come down here. With whom did you leave those few sheep in the wilderness? I know how conceited you are and how wicked your heart is. You came down only to watch the battle. Now what have I done?" said David. "Can I even speak?" He then turned away to someone else and brought up the same matter, and the men answered him as before. What David said was overheard and reported to Saul, and Saul sent for him. David said to Saul, "Let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine. Your servant will go and fight him." Saul replied, "You are not able to go out against the Philistine and fight him. You are only a young man, and he has been a warrior from his youth." But David said to Saul, "Your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. When a lion or bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it, struck it, and rescued the sheep from its mouth. When it had turned on me, I seized it by its hair, struck it, and killed it. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear. This uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, because he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of this Philistine. Amen. Saul said to David, go, and may the Lord be with you. Then Saul dressed David in his own tunic. He put a coat of armor on him and a bronze helmet on his head. And David fastened on his sword over the tunic and tried walking around because he was not used to them. Can I go in these? He said to Saul, because I'm not used to them. So he took them off. Then he took his staff in his hand, chose 5 smooth stones from the stream, put them in the pouch of his shepherd's bag, and with his sling in his hand, approached the Philistine. Meanwhile, the Philistine, with his shield bearer in front of him, kept coming closer to David. He looked David over and saw that he was a little more than a boy, glowing with health and handsome, and he despised him. He said to David, am I a dog that you come at me with sticks? And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. Come here, he said, and I'll give your flesh to the birds and the wild animals. Verse 45. David said to the Philistine, you come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. Amen. Then Paul said this reminder to the church at Rome, and in a sense continues to say it to us today. Verse 35 of Romans chapter 8 to its conclusion. Who shall separate us from the love of Christ? Shall trouble, or hardship, or persecution, or famine, or nakedness, or danger, or sword? As it is written, for your sake we face death all day long. We are considered as sheep to be slaughtered. No, in all these things we are more than conquerors through him who loved us. For I am convinced, some translations say persuaded, I am convinced that neither death nor life, neither angels nor demons, neither the present nor the future, nor any powers, neither height nor depth, nor anything else in all creation will be able to separate us from the love of God that is in Christ Jesus our Lord. Amen. Amen. May the word of God, which is true and blessed, may be proven so by the way that we live our lives according to the truth of God's word. Church, tonight, this closing night, this rainy night, but in what all that God has been doing with and through Mount Olive and all that God is doing with and through each and every one of us, sometimes, as Pastor Ellis said, what a wonderful setup, is sometimes we focus so much on the cloud we forget that the sun is above the rain that's below. We forget that there is a sun that's always going to shine. And the reason I say that because sometimes because of that we fly below, we operate below what God has called us to be. But tonight I just want to remind you that it is our not only privilege but our responsibility as children of God to take the limits off. So look at your neighbor, tell your neighbor, take the limits off. Tell another neighbor, take the limits off. Pray with the church. Our Father, we've gathered in your house, this house of prayer, this house you have established, you have created, that you have empowered to go forth, do your work, your justice, to call forth your name, to give you glory. We thank you for Mount Olive Baptist Church. We thank you for its shepherd and his wife and family. We thank you for this entire church family and their leaders. We thank you for First Baptist Church and for all who have gathered in every church that is represented, for we are all your children. We thank you that you allow us to come together to be encouraged by you through your Holy Spirit, through your words. Lord, I ask that you would speak through me. That as you speak through me, you would give us eyes to see, ears to hear, and a heart that's fertile ground to receive your seed. Allow it to become 30, 60, 90, or even 100-fold in harvest. And all that we say and that we do. And so, Lord, may you be glorified. May souls be changed and saved. May we give you the glory, for you are worthy of all praise. This is my prayer. Elohim, Creator God, even greater we offer to you as our praise. For it's in the name of your Son, who is our Savior, Jesus the Christ, we do ask it and pray. And all who agree will gladly say, Amen. I want to start off with just a little joke that really had anything to do with the message, but it's just a little joke I like to tell. I talked about this grandfather, and he went by the name of Grandpa. He had this granddaughter who always would come over. He would always read a story, and she would sit right there beside him, and he would pull out one of her favorite books, and he would start reading to her children's stories that she would love. And so he did as he normally did. He started reading this one particular story, and this time his granddaughter she was looking at him more intently than she had ever done before. And he looks at her, he smiles, and he keeps reading. And as he's reading the story to her, his little granddaughter starts touching his face. And he's just, he's so good with that. He touches his face, and then she touches her own face. And then he continues to read. And finally, as he's reading, the little girl stops him for a minute. And he says, Grandpa, I got a question for you. He says, Grandpa, did God make you? He says, yeah, baby, God made me a long time ago. And he keeps reading the story, and she goes on and she's touching his face, and then she's touching her own face, and then she decides to interrupt him again. And she says, Grandpa, yeah, baby, did God make me too? Yeah, baby, God made you not too long ago. Because she is only about 5 years old or something like that. And he started to read again, and then she touched his face one last time and touched his face. And she looked at him and she said, Grandpa, if God made you, and God made me, and she touched his face, and then she touched her face, and she looked at her grandfather and said, God's getting better at this, isn't he, Grandfather? But tonight we want to be encouraged to be all that God has called us to be. And sometimes we forget truly who it is that we serve. True it is the power that the one we serve has anointed and given to us and has called us to and empowered us to be, because sometimes we let the fight make us miss the limitless power that God has put within us. I say that because when we look at this text, when we look at 1 Samuel, Samuel talks about a story that many of us are familiar with. It talks about David, but it's talking about David before David became really known as famous for David. This kind of was what ushered him into what's going on. And if you remember the text talks about, here it is in the summary, the Reader's Digest, that David ends up having to face this giant of a man, this brother who, depending on translations, anywhere between 8 and 9 feet tall, this Philistine by the name of Goliath, who has been taunting and bullying the nation of Israel, the army of Israel, and he's threatening them, and he's taunting them, and he's bullying them, and he's yelling at them. The translation literally says that he just defies them, and he mocks them, and he yells at them. In a sense, he's doing bullying. He's bullying them. This giant is bullying them, and we got to remember that there's always a bully somewhere. Right now, we got one sitting at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, but there's bullies somewhere. And the question becomes, what's yelling at you right now? What is it that's yelling, or who is yelling at you that has you feeling bullied? Is it a Me Too moment, sisters? Is it something that's going on in your life? Is it something that's happening in your job? What's yelling at you, defying you, mocking you, and telling you, I dare you? We're not careful. Life is always trying to to yell at us and mock us and bully us and dare us. And here it is in this text that Goliath is all 6. He's really saying, I dare you. Which one of you think you big and bad enough to come against me? You see what I look like. You see how tall I am. You see the javelin in my hand. You see my armor bearer. You see how tall I am. I'm going to taunt you. Which one of you are going to respond to my bullying? Nobody says a thing. Jefferson. All right. Got it right. And the problem is that the truth is, it's not just in the story, because sometimes the same thing is happening to us. Sometimes it may not be a person. Sometimes it may be an actual person that's bullying you. But what dreams do you have? What vision has God given you? But you let life bully you to stay below where God has called you to be, to fly below where God has called you to soar. What's yelling at you? What's defying you and telling you that you can't be what you know God called you to be, that you can't go where God told you to go, that you can't go and build and be the things that God has called you to do because you're too busy letting the bully yell you below your possibilities. And here's the thing, he didn't do it just one day, Pastor. He didn't do it just 2 days. The text tells us that this went on for 40 days. For 40 days, this brother has been yelling at them. For 40 days, this Philistine has been going at them, defying Israel. And not one man steps up or steps out. What I love about the text is that when a bully shows up, understand, one of the things I understand is that parents teach, hey, for every bully, there's a bigger bully. And usually the bullies are only that bad because ain't nobody ever come against them. But what I love about God is that if you're going to come up against God's children, you better have your ducks in order because you ain't never going to win. What I love about this is here it is, Goliath has been bullying them for 40 days. Not one man, not one grown man. And I say that, brothers, because I was so glad that Pastor Ellis said that when we were in that meeting, that here it is, that we were the ones who were doing most of the talking, but the bully will always look to what the bully incorrectly thinks is the weakest link. And when he started going at our sister who was with us, it wasn't that I had to think about it, it was just natural to come up. And I did stand up and say, hey, who do you think you're talking to? And we got to do that too. What we got to do is when the enemy tries to come at you, you got to stand up and say, who do you think you're talking to? You don't know my dad. When you grew up, you talk about your biological daddy, but that's all of us in Christ, we talking about our father. You don't know my daddy, don't come at me like that. Goliath has been bullying them, but God still has a weapon in God's arsenal. Yes, sir. The text here is that the one that they thought was weak in the eyes of man became the vessel of God's word and God's power. The one they had dismissed became the one who would actually bring defeat of the enemy and bring victory. And it came by a word. It didn't come by a lesson, by a weapon. It came by the word, that the word was his power. The word was his weapon. That's why Psalm tells us in Psalm 33, by the word of the Lord the heavens were made, by the breath of his mouth all of their hosts. He spoke and it was done. He commanded and it stood fast. We got to stay on God's word. Because in his word is where the power is. In his word is where the victory. In his word, if God breathes it, if God said it, it's a done deal. When God says it, it's done. If he says something, it's done. When God spoke and said, let there be light, light didn't have a choice but to say, here I am. When God said, if God speaks healing, there will be healing. The only thing that God is asking us to do is invite God to speak into our life. That God wants to speak into our life, but you've got to let God speak into your life as an individual, as a family, as a marriage, and as a church that he's calling us. Why? Because God is awesome in power. He's awesome in his word. As God thinks, so it comes to pass. There has never been a time that God said so and it did not happen. As God purposes in your life, if you let him in, it shall be. How much more will God's living word be fulfilled if you let it into your soul? Amen. That's what God wants us to understand. And here it is that the word of God performs its work in those who believe. And in this text, we got all these people, they gathered. Here's Israel's army. They know the history of God has done for them. They know how he called Abram out of Abram at the time of the Ur of the Chaldees. He became Abraham, and he had Isaac, and he had Jacob, and they eventually went into bondage into Egypt, and how they spent so many decades, centuries there, and then how God brought them out by the miraculous power of God's hand, walked them across the Dead Sea. They remember all of these stories of what God had promised, and here they are as God's army, and they ducking and hiding. They know God's word. They've been given God's word, but they're not standing in God's word. But what I love about it is that when you finally get to the point that you're going to say, it don't matter who's coming against me, what somebody else said, if God's word says it, then I believe it, that settles it. When you do, then the power becomes certain in you. What God says God will do, and what God has spoken, God will make true in our lives. So here is what he tells you. God's looking for somebody just to trust him. And in this, here it is that they are the army. They are ready for battle, but they ain't ready for battle. Let me explain what I mean by that. They got on the armor. They look like they soldiers. They have gathered like they soldiers. They are in troop formation like they soldiers, but ain't nobody going to go out to the battle. And God says, if you just put your trust that he will be your banner and guide you, then your faith will make sure you are never disappointed. How do I know? Because the text helps us to see. Amen. Here it is that God keeps his word and leads us to experience more than we could ever ask or imagine. In other words, we're going to see in this text that if you trust God, if you believe God, if you walk with God, if you hold on to God's promises, you can walk in God's victory. Amen. If you take the limits off. Amen. So here it is. It's just two things. And here's two things I want us to remember. We'll be done in just a little bit. I'm not going to say shortly, because I don't like when preachers say we'll be done shortly. And next thing you know, they're like, that is not shortly. But I'm not going to be long. But I ain't going to say shortly. Two things we got to remember. This text helps us to see. First thing we got to remember is that you were saved.